Fang Chen knew in his heart that if Liu Qingxian were to go far away from him, not only would she be completely safe, but she might even obtain a heaven-defying fortuitous opportunity. Yet in the end, it was purely out of selfishness that he wanted to keep her by his side.
Fang Chen raised his eyes toward the faintly glowing mark and asked in a deep voice, "Senior, what exactly do you intend for Qingxian to do in the martial repository?"
The mark suddenly emitted a soft glow, and within the halo, the blurry figure of a one-armed elder faintly emerged. The phantom of the one-armed elder slowly spoke, its voice hoarse and low, "To stop the one who escaped from the Sumeru Divine Prison." Fang Chen's pupils abruptly contracted, and he blurted out, "You mean the existence on the third level?" The one-armed saint remained deliberately evasive, not answering directly, and merely said in a hoarse voice, "The calamities of the Myriad Heavens and 100 realms all stem from him. Stopping him is the duty of my lineage." The image of Sumeru Divine Prison's colossal gate instantly surfaced in Fang Chen's mind, a gate that had been melted through, leaving a human-shaped gap. Could that gap be the trace left when this person escaped? Just what kind of existence is he? Were the chaotic calamities of the Myriad Heavens and 100 realms truly caused by him? The mere thought of Liu Qingxian having to face such a terrifying being made Fang Chen's resistance grow even stronger. Fang Chen shook his head resolutely. "It's far too dangerous." The phantom in the mark spoke unhurriedly. "She is merely one of 9 inheritors I selected from across the Myriad Heavens and 100 realms. Whether she can ultimately stand out among the candidates and become the true inheritor is still unknown." 9 inheritors. Only then did Fang Chen suddenly understand why the Sword Heart meteor inscription was carved onto a meteorite. It turned out that this cultivation technique was originally launched into various worlds from the void by the one-armed saint to select his inheritors. Liu Qingxian of the Central Plains was merely one of those he had scouted. And that golden little sword, he hadn't just passed it to Liu Qingxian through the little Qilin, he must have used other means to deliver it to the other candidates as well. A trapped saint, yet still capable of laying out schemes across the Myriad Heavens and 100 realms from the shadows. It truly validates the words of the 9 Nether Demon Venerable, never underestimate a saint. Liu Qingxian suddenly grasped Fang Chen's hand and looked at him with resolute eyes, her tone determined. "Husband, let me go. Even if I fail, my strength will still greatly increase. If I succeed, all the better. I, too, want to become someone who can shoulder heavy responsibilities for this world, just like you." Yun Sheng, Zhen Yan, and Gong Keiyi were all deeply moved upon hearing this. Liu Qingxian, though a woman, possessed a spirit surpassing that of most men in the world. Would it truly be right for Fang Chen to forcefully keep such a person by his side? Fang Chen gazed deeply at Liu Qingxian, and in a trance, it was as if he saw once again that stubborn and proud young lady of the sect master back then. She had finally rediscovered her true self. Fang Chen remained silent for a long while, a bitter smile finally surfacing on his face, and sighed deeply. "The martial repository, is it? If one day I step into the void, I will surely come to the martial repository to find you. If you're not happy there, just obediently come back with me, all right." Liu Qingxian was instantly overjoyed and tightly embraced Fang Chen. "Thank you, husband. I will definitely work hard and never disappoint your expectations." The bitterness in Fang Chen's heart only deepened. He, on the contrary, wished Qingxian didn't have to work so hard, didn't have to bear some heaven-sent great responsibility. That would simply be too exhausting. Within the small sword mark, the phantom of the one-armed saint slowly said, "Thank you for letting her go. When you have the chance, visit the Sumeru Divine Prison again. I left some things inside the prison that should be useful to you. We shall meet in the martial repository." As his voice faded, the small sword mark suddenly projected a golden, dazzling sword silhouette. With a gentle slash, it tore open the space before them, revealing an unfathomably deep void. Liu Qingxian gave Fang Chen one last deep embrace, gazing longingly at the face she had known since their meeting in solitary Boat City, her heart filled with overwhelming reluctance. She rose onto her tiptoes, and her red lips lightly brushed against his. The rims of her eyes could not help reddening. "I'm leaving." She slowly released her hands and retreated to the edge of the void, her vision finally blurred by tears. Finally, she resolutely turned around and stepped into the void. That golden sword silhouette carried her as it sped toward the distance. Fang Chen gazed silently until her figure had completely vanished, his heart churning like a tempestuous sea. Liu Ruxu had remained in the Hell Realm, Yu Mingzhu had left, and now Liu Qingxian had also gone. Ling Shu would soon depart with the 9 Nether Demon Venerable for distant lands, and Zhen Yan likewise had to step into the void to search for her father. Each of them had their own missions, their own paths of life.
Those occasional reunions were merely the brief intersections of their trajectories along the long journey. On life's journey, some leave early and some leave later. It is only a matter of time. Gazing at distant mountains and rivers only stirs vain thoughts. Falling blossoms in wind and rain deepen the sorrow of spring. Better to cherish the one before your eyes. Yan Sheng's gaze trembled lightly, and from behind, she quietly wrapped her arms around Fang Chen's waist. Fang Lang, I will always be with you. Gong Kei also echoed softly, me too. Our greatest concern is you. Warmth surged in Fang Chen's heart. He gently pulled the two women into his embrace and whispered, Don't worry, I'm fine. Parting is a compulsory lesson in life, and I've slowly learned to accept it. He turned his gaze to Zhen Yan, whose expression was complex, and gently comforted her. Go do what you must. As long as we can reunite in the future, what does a temporary separation matter? Zhen Yan's emotions stirred even more intensely. It was clearly Fang Chen who should have been comforted, yet in the end, it was he who was comforting her. Fang Chen had always been meticulously considerate of her feelings. Zhen Yan softly called out husband and leaned her head against his chest, increasingly feeling how reliable the man before her was. Fang Chen smiled faintly, and with the three women in his arms, he leaned against the couch and began to chat quietly. Zhen Yan suddenly looked at Gong Kei and asked curiously, Sister Kei, why does Yu Mingzhu always call you a prude? Gong Kei's face flushed red. She huffed softly and retorted, why don't you first tell us what Sister Ruxu said to you back then that makes you so afraid of her? Sister Yanshang, what are you giggling about? You two, how did you, a married woman at the time, convince yourself to give yourself to our husband? Yanshang was asked until her face was completely red, and she hastily chided, Hey you all, what silly questions are you asking? Fang Chen listened quietly, the corners of his eyes and lips full of contented mirth. In this moment, his state of mind was more tranquil than ever before. Perhaps this was what he had been pursuing all along. Once the heavenly realm is destroyed, the dark tide has passed, and the mysteries of the grand void ancient tree are resolved, he would carve out a small world of his own and quiet. Spend the rest of his life with them like this. As he listened, Fang Chen's mind gradually began to wander. When he came to his senses again, he was shocked to find his consciousness standing upon the steps of the fourth domain. Only one final step remained to reach the summit. Only then did he realize that, silently and soundlessly, he had already progressed so deeply within the fourth domain. Fall of great venerable compassion mirror, the grief and joy of losing and regaining Liu Qingxian's departure, the tender companionship of the three women. Through each rise and fall of his state of mind, he had achieved silent understanding and elevation. How numerous are the accidents of this world! The death of his godmother and Qingxian's departure none came by expectation. Rather than waiting for regrets to form and then destroying the imperfect or trying to mend the flawed with perfection, it is better to avert misfortune before it arises. If one could, before the river of time, perceive the karmic causes of heaven and earth and sever those regrets in advance, would that not reduce shortcomings? His eyes gradually brightened, the invisible resistance quietly dissipated, and his consciousness finally succeeded in ascending the fourth step. The flame upon the fourth altar was immediately ignited in response. His fourth domain was precisely insight. Under this domain, he could perceive an opponent's true body, cultivation, thoughts, and even past memories. If encountering a stranger, once the domain was activated, all kinds of hidden information about the other party would become clear. Not only could he distinguish good from evil, but he could also anticipate the enemy's moves and seize victory. It would be especially useful against cunning adversaries. A hint of a smile flickered in Fang Chen's eyes as he turned to look at Zhen Yan. He couldn't help but feel curious what exactly had Liu Ruxu said to her back then that made her so fearful, even in her madness. Unfortunately, at present, he only had the comprehension, but had yet to break through in cultivation, so the fourth domain could not truly take form. Now, he could only hope that flawless sage would soon refine the dragon abyss fruit into a spirit pill. This was the first time he had ever encountered a cultivation break, through hindered by lack of resources. Had it not been for raiding the possessions of inferior sage Yanhe, the resources needed to break through the 4 decays of the celestial human would still be a distant prospect. Even the 4 decays of the celestial human are this difficult. The resources to break through the 5 decays of the celestial human are bound to be even harder to obtain. A heavens sent great medicine as rare as the seed of the Calamity, transcending Black Lotus. There won't be a second one to be found anywhere in the Middle Lands in a short time. Even in the heavenly realm, there may not be anything comparable. Fang Chen murmured softly, "It seems I must start preparing early for the resources to break through the 5 decays of the celestial human. At present, he already holds a Myriad Divine Pearl that can help him break through to the Sage Realm. As soon as he steps into the realm of the 5 decays of the celestial human, he can immediately use merit to enter the Sage Realm. This is exactly like when he went from the 7 aperture, nascent soul directly into the divine transformation realm in one step. Of course, the premise is that the saying, the holy angel's remnant soul, once spoke, the ancestral Tao does not attain sagacity, will not come true. Time flowed on, and in a blink, a full day had passed. Yunsheng kissed Fang Chen on the cheek and said with a gentle smile, "Thank you, Fang Lang, for keeping me company the entire day. I can't disturb you any longer. Go busy yourself. You still have many matters to attend to." Venerable Zhenyan also nodded in agreement. Indeed, the delegation from the Hell Realm is still waiting outside the mountain gate. Gong Kei also smiled and urged him, "Go on quickly. We 3 sisters still have some things to talk about, and it's not convenient with you here." Hearing this, Fang Chen couldn't help but laugh. "What are you talking about that I can't conveniently hear?" Gong Kei covered her mouth with a light laugh, her eyes swirling with a trace of mischief. "Oh, plenty of things. Now get going." Fang Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was actually being kicked out. He shook his head helplessly, smiled, and teleported away. Once Fang Chen's aura had completely vanished, Gong Kei eagerly grabbed Venerable Zhenyan's hand. She leaned in close, her eyes shining with gossip. "Little Zhenyan, be honest. Have you made some progress with our husband? You treat him differently now than before." Hearing this, Zhenyan panicked and immediately stood up, trying to flee. I'm going to cultivate too." Yunsheng, quick as lightning, grabbed her other hand and yanked her back. With a hooked smile, she fixed Zhenyan with an amused, teasing gaze, no slipping away. "You're about to leave the Middle Lands before you go. Don't you want to accompany your husband just once?" Zhenyan's fair, cool, toned face was flushed scarlet by the 2 women's relentless teasing. Biting her lip, her voice trembled. What are you doing?" Yunsheng giggled and leaned close to her ear, her breath like an orchid. "Of course, we're teaching you some of our husband's favorite positions. Be sure to learn them well." Zhenyan pressed both hands to her burning cheeks in a panic, stomping her feet in frustration. I'm not learning that. Let me go, let me leave." Yunsheng only laughed harder, turning her head to shout behind her, "Sister Kei, hold her down. Today she must learn, whether she wants to or not." Gong Kei immediately understood and rolled up her sleeves with a grin. "Yes, guaranteed teaching, guaranteed learning. I don't want to." No matter how Zhenyan struggled, the 2 women had already dragged her into the inner chamber. From within, the sounds of teasing banter and playful scuffling among the women immediately rang out. As it happened, Fang Chen had not gone far. He was standing just outside the secret chamber. After eavesdropping for a moment, he couldn't help but blush, coughing dryly and muttering, "When women get horny, there really isn't anything left for us men." He shook his head hard to dispel the stray thoughts, and quickly flashed back to his own long, unused secret chamber. Per his usual routine, he needed to inspect it first. His gaze swept casually, intending this as a mere formality. But much to his surprise, this routine check actually detected a trace of something out of the ordinary. Fang Chen's eyes narrowed sharply, fixing on a dark corner as he issued a cold shout. What audacity! He had clearly sensed a faint fluctuation of demonic Kai. Though the intruder had hidden it extremely well, how could it escape the powerful soul perception of someone at the 4 decays of the celestial human? Without any courtesy, Fang Chen decisively drew his sinister sword and stabbed forward with a strike wrapped in frosty, icy light. A sharp, ear-piercing **** rang out as the sinister sword struck something extremely hard. The figure concealed in the darkness then revealed itself. It was actually a sensuously dressed, alluring woman. A large expanse of pale, fair skin and deep cleavage was exposed at her chest. She was incredibly beautiful, with eyes like threads of silk. Merely a casual glance from her carried a soul-snatching, seductive charm. In her hand was a shield woven from black snake scales, which had just barely blocked the sinister sword's fierce blow. He, little master is truly heartless, not seeing me for so long and then immediately trying to kill me. That uniquely almost mesmerizing voice came, and Fang Chen could guess who it was even with his eyes closed. The demoness. The same female demon cultivator venerable who had once been controlled by the Asura Holy Sun. It's you? Fang Chen narrowed his eyes and slowly withdrew his sinister sword, resting it across his knees, and said coldly, You actually dare come to me on your own? You really have no fear of death." The demoness laughed coquettishly, wriggling her water, snake-waist as she sidled up to Fang Chen, deliberately pressing her ample bosom against his arm, her face full of allure. "Oh, could my little master bear to kill me?" Fang Chen gave a cold snort as a violent surge of thunder and lightning force erupted from his body. The demoness reacted extremely fast, giggling and stepping aside just in time, pouting playfully, "Oh my, little master has gotten angry." Fang Chen stared at her, his voice hard as iron. "You have 10 breaths to speak your business." The reason he held back from attacking was entirely because the demoness had once secretly warned him that the Asura Holy Sun would be coming to trouble him. But that was the only reason. This demoness acted neither fully righteous nor purely evil. She was absolutely no benign character. The demoness, however, paid no mind to his cold expression. With a giggle, she flipped her hand and produced an entirely pitch-black throne. An intense, dense aura of the monster race radiated from the throne. "I'm here to give my little master a treasure, and little master wants to chase me away. That truly wounds my heart." Fang Chen's attention was instantly captured by that black throne. He found the object somewhat familiar. After a brief recollection, he abruptly realized what it was: the Black Dragon Great Venerable's throne treasury. That treasury containing the mysterious purple crystal ore. When Fang Chen had captured the Black Dragon Great Venerable's soul, he had interrogated him about the treasury's whereabouts. The Black Dragon Great Venerable confessed that his physical body was controlled by the Asura Holy Sun, and all the items on him had been looted by the demoness, naturally including this throne treasury. At this thought, a heated, fervent look immediately appeared in Fang Chen's eyes. He didn't care about the other items in the treasury, but that mysterious purple crystal ore absolutely had to be obtained. Mo Dinkian once analyzed that this purple crystal ore was probably used to hold some kind of seal or stamp. The 8 large characters in that depression, indistinguishable to the naked eye, were the residual marks left by the stamp over ages. The Black Dragon Great Venerable once acquired a piece of cloth that bore a rubbing of those 8 characters, and the cloth itself already contained a terrifying pressure capable of collapsing the void. One can well imagine the extraordinary nature of this purple crystal ore. The coldness on Fang Chen's face instantly melted away. He nimbly sheathed his sinister sword and revealed a warm spring-like smile. "Demoness Mei, aren't you treating me too much like a stranger?" Seeing this, the demoness chuckled. "What a realistic little man. A moment ago you were cold, faced, and about to skewer me with your sword. The moment you see benefits, you switch face and call me Demoness Mei." Laughing, she shook her head, yet inwardly finding him immensely entertaining. She, who was often cursed for having no shame, suddenly felt that she still had some face left to spare after all. However, the demoness shifted her tone, her smile all enchantment. "I like that shameless look of yours. Want the throne?" She lifted a jade-like hand and pointed to her fair cheek. "First, give me a kiss." Fang Chen's smile froze, and he drew his sinister sword again, his voice cold. "Will you give it or not?" The demoness, smiling coquettishly, pulled apart her collar, revealing a dazzling expanse of snow-white skin. "Of course I'll give it. If my little master wants it, how would I dare refuse? You can do whatever you like with me. The more thrilling, the more I'll enjoy it."
"Damn!"
Fang Chen clutched his sword, unsure whether to strike or not. This kind of woman he truly had no idea how to handle. Watching Fang Chen's crestfallen, awkward expression, the demoness covered her mouth and laughed so hard she couldn't straighten her back. "And here I thought you were the number need divine transformation cultivator of the Middle Lands. Is this all you've got?" Fang Chen snorted with embarrassment and anger. "Enough of your nonsense. What exactly do you want with me?" "There's no way you only came all this way just to deliver the throne treasury." The demoness reined in her laughter a bit, flicking her long, cascading hair. "What else would it be?" "Naturally, I'm asking my little master to help me out." "That's more like it." Fang Chen's eyes flickered, thoughts racing. He had roughly guessed her purpose. "You want me to help you escape the control of the Asura Saint Sun." Though the Asura Saint Sun has vanished without a trace, the bloodworm he left inside the demoness must still be there. As long as this worm remains, the demoness will never be free. That's the first reason. The second is that I want you to cut open this void and let me leave the Middle Land. The demoness added. With the Asura Saint Sun gone, she, as one of his people, would sooner or later be purged by the various forces of the Middle Land. Taking advantage of the fact that the Middle Land is now launching a campaign against the Heavenly Realm, and all sides are too busy to pay attention to her, she must leave quickly. Otherwise, when the four seas are unified and peace reigns over the world, she will find it hard to leave.
If these were all her demands, for Fang Chen it wasn't much of a difficulty.
Where do you plan to go? Fang Chen asked. The demoness rubbed her smooth chin, pondering. I'll go to the divine capital.
I heard from the Asura Saint Sun that the dark tide is coming, and few of the myriad worlds across the heavens can withstand it. The divine capital is one of the safest worlds.
At that point, she suddenly switched to a smiling expression, leaning in close and whispering teasingly, "Little gentleman, why don't we elope together?" Fang Chen rolled his eyes at her in exasperation.
However, was that so-called dark tide truly so terrifying?
He said no more, and simply flicked his chest lightly.
As a surge of scorching heat flowed, a feather of the five-colored rooster immediately flew out of his body. With a flash of light, it transformed into the phantom image of a five-colored rooster.
The phantom let out a resounding crow at the demoness. The demoness showed a pained expression as a completely blood-red nail-like strange insect was forced out from her forehead. The demoness, swift as lightning, grabbed the insect and clutched it firmly in her palm.
Damned insect, did you have a comfortable stay inside this old lady's body? The demoness cursed angrily. Tell your master that this old lady will sooner or later slaughter him.
Before her voice had faded, her 5 fingers clenched hard, and surging demonic Kai instantly crushed the blood insect into flying ash. Fang Chen raised his hand and retrieved the feather, gripping the evil sword again, and asked, "Will you leave now, or prepare a bit more?"
The demoness quickly suppressed the anger on her face and cast another bone, melting, enchanting glance, saying coquettishly, "What, can't bear to part with this servant?" Fang Chen scoffed dismissively and, opening his mouth, spat out void, flowing thunderfire onto the evil sword. He suddenly swung the sword, domineeringly tearing open a black gash in the void before him, and barked coldly, "Get lost now." The demoness giggled. "Thank you, little gentleman, he." She no longer delayed. Swaying her slender waist, she stepped unhurriedly into the void rift. Who knew what method she used? When the raging void turbulence blew onto her, it all automatically parted, leaving her completely unharmed. Before entering the depths of the void, the demoness turned her head to glance at Fang Chen. She raised her hand to her lips and blew Fang Chen an exquisitely charming kiss. We'll meet again if fate allows." With that, she flew into the void amidst a string of intoxicating, coquettish laughter, vanishing from sight. Fang Chen raised his hand and smoothed over the void crack, then immediately turned his gaze to the suspended throne palace before him. This abode, when he had feigned amnesia, the Black Dragon Great Venerable had personally told him the incantation to open it, and he had successfully opened it once. He promptly chanted the incantation in his mind. But, as expected, the incantation had indeed become ineffective. Fang Chen took out from his bosom the soul tower that imprisoned countless souls. With a thought, a wisp of black soul drifted out from the tower. The soul's appearance was exactly that of the half-human, half-snake Black Dragon, Great Venerable. The moment the Black Dragon, Great Venerable, left the soul tower, he fled into the void without hesitation, attempting to escape. But just as he had one foot into nothingness, Fang Chen had already formed hand seals and barked in a low voice, "Soul-binding lock." A soul's secret art was instantly activated. The soul of the Black Dragon, Great Venerable, was immediately bound tight, unable to move. Now that only his soul remained, he simply could not break free from Fang Chen's soul, binding lock at the level of the 4 declines of Heavenly Man, and was trussed up like a rice dumpling. Fang Chen smiled faintly and said, "Black Dragon, Great Venerable, it's been a long time." The Black Dragon, Great Venerable, glared resentfully at Fang Chen and snorted, "HMPH, you actually didn't die at the hands of the Asura Saint Sun. Your life is truly tenacious." In his view, how hard could it be for a scheming and treacherous man like the Asura Saint Sun to kill a single Fang Chen? Unexpectedly, Fang Chen was actually still alive. Fang Chen shrugged, his tone indifferent. "That's all ancient history. Current Asura Saint Sun has had his cultivation crippled, fallen from the 5 declines of Heavenly Man, and his life or death is unknown." The Black Dragon, Great Venerable, was momentarily stunned. In such a short time, the Asura Saint Sun had actually fallen from the lofty status of a sage back to the 5 declines of Heavenly Man. He looked at Fang Chen before him and couldn't help but sigh deeply. "I suddenly realized that everyone who opposes you meets a bad end. I am one, the benevolent heart sage is another, and the Asura Saint Sun even more so." Fang Chen said calmly, "Understanding this now is a bit late. I'll give you 2 choices. First, a quick death. Second, enter this bottle and suffer slowly."
He raised his hand and took out a small black bottle within which faintly burned a flame that suppressed souls. The father of the Heartgrudge Venerable, as well as that hellish desolate beast, had both stayed inside this bottle before.
The Black Dragon Great Venerable's eyes flickered. He suddenly retorted, "Do you now need something from me?"
He glanced around and abruptly saw his throne treasure vault and couldn't help laughing. Heh, so you want to open my treasure vault? What, realize the old incantation no longer works? Fang Chen ignored his taunts and said coldly, "You have 3 breaths to choose."
The Black Dragon Great Venerable suppressed his smile and mused, "Can't you let me off?"
Fang Chen shook his head. "I don't have the habit of leaving hidden dangers for myself." The Black Dragon Great Venerable sighed up to the sky and said resolutely, "Fine, I admit defeat. I hope you keep your promise and give me a quick death." Fang Chen said, "Of course. Once I get the incantation, you'll have no use. Torturing you serves no purpose." The Black Dragon Great Venerable took a deep breath and said heavily, "The incantation is, rise again from the East Mountain." Oh, this incantation is rather fitting. Fang Chen gazed at the throne abode and chanted in a low voice, "Rise again from the East Mountain."
From deep within the throne abode came a crisp mechanical click, yet the abode did not truly open.
On the contrary, a terrifying black light suddenly shot out from it, heading straight for Fang Chen.
This attack was too sudden, fast as a thunderbolt.
A vicious grin also appeared on the Black Dragon Great Venerable's face as he cursed fiercely, "Fool, did you think this Venerable's throne would be so easy to covet? Die." Just as the black light was about to hit him, a muffled sound like tearing silk rang out, and the Black Dragon Great Venerable's expression suddenly froze. They saw that Fang Chen had at some point grasped a black sword sheathed in void, flowing thunderfire, and cleaved open the void before him. That black light shot precisely into the void rift and vanished without a trace.
Had he not taken precautions in advance, he could never have reacted so swiftly. The Black Dragon Great Venerable stared deeply at Fang Chen, his voice tense. "You knew there was a trap in the throne."
Fang Chen smiled faintly. "I didn't know, but I could guess. How could someone as arrogant as you easily hand over your life savings? Hence I took precautions." Having personally experienced traps hidden within storage treasures before, he naturally wouldn't fall for it easily.
The Black Dragon Great Venerable's face darkened, and he said hatefully, "So you managed to save your wretched life?"
Fang Chen narrowed his eyes, his tone abruptly cold. "Speak the true incantation. My patience is limited."
The Black Dragon Great Venerable curled his lip, first laughing coldly in a low voice, then throwing his head back in mad laughter. Fang Chen, so there are times when you need me. You are the first of the 9 tablets, the hero of the Middle Land who destroyed the heavenly remnant city and killed the benevolent heart sage.
Even you have to ask me, ha 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 ha. Fang Chen's gaze was icy cold. 3.
The Black Dragon Great Venerable, face full of mockery, simply laid it out. "No need to count. Do you think a Great Venerable of my seniority would be spineless?"
Every step I've taken was stained with blood and tears, mere torture to make me submit. Heha, I'd rather be tortured than let you get off easy. I want to watch you fail to obtain it, and grow anxious, heha. Watching the crazily laughing Black Dragon Great Venerable, Fang Chen rubbed his brow and said coldly, "Since you don't want to leave with dignity, I'll grant you a dignified end." He took out the ancient mirror of heart reflection and captured the figure of the Black Dragon Great Venerable within it. This was a spirit artifact capable of eavesdropping on others' inner thoughts, which had never failed. The Black Dragon Great Venerable glanced at it and scoffed. "You seek to pry into my thoughts. Do you think that's possible? Do you take the soul of a Great Venerable for something made of paper? Unless I hold no guard against you, you can forget about it."
Fang Chen, expressionless, brought out a strange flower that was entirely fiery red, with golden stamens. The Black Dragon Great Venerable narrowed his eyes and sneered. "What, trying to poison me? I'd be more than willing."
Fang Chen said flatly, "This flower from the Hell Realm is called the Flower of Forgotten Dust. It causes one to temporarily forget all worries and sorrows. Naturally, you will also forget who I am. By then, you should have no guard against me."
"What?" The Black Dragon Great Venerable's face stiffened. Then he struggled fiercely, roaring with a savage expression. "Get lost. Get the hell away from me. Why should my opportunity be seized by you? On what grounds? In this world, the victor becomes king, the loser a bandit.
I, Black Dragon, am a man of great fortune myself, only my luck isn't as good as you successful ones. I would rather die than let my chance serve as a wedding dress for a heaven-blessed prodigy like you."
Fang Chen remained utterly indifferent, not moved in the slightest.
He coldly rebuked, "You speak as if you're so noble, opening the underground world, unleashing hellish creatures to slaughter your own kind. Are you even fit to be called a king?"
At best, the Black Dragon Great Venerable is merely a brutal and treacherous warlord.
Whatever end he meets, he deserves no pity.
Without hesitation, Fang Chen crushed the flower, and wisps of pollen wafted out, slowly merging into the soul of the Black Dragon Great Venerable. The Black Dragon Great Venerable was both shocked and enraged, his voice gradually weakening. "I won't give you the purple crystal mine is mine."
Amidst his roar, his aura grew weaker and weaker, and his eyes shifted from arrogance to calmness until they turned completely vacant. "Who are you?" The Black Dragon Great Venerable stared blankly at Fang Chen before him.
Seizing this moment when he was most off guard, Fang Chen asked in a deep voice, "What is the incantation for the cave abode?"
The Black Dragon Great Venerable's expression was wooden, instinctively alert and not responding, but involuntarily his mind recalled.
"The incantation is rising again from the east. No, that's a trap incantation. The real incantation is the victor becomes king, the loser a bandit."
Fang Chen's expression relaxed, and he breathed a silent sigh of relief. He had finally obtained the incantation. It hadn't been easy. If he had broken through the 4 declines of heaven and man and possessed the 4th domain, he wouldn't have needed to go through such trouble. He tossed the Black Dragon Great Venerable aside, and facing the throne, chanted loudly, "The victor becomes king, the loser a bandit." In that instant, the throne cave abode trembled slightly, and finally, a spatial ripple emerged. With a thought, Fang Chen flashed and entered the cave abode.
The cave abode of the Black Dragon Great Venerable that he had been yearning for, he had finally entered successfully. What met his eyes was a mountain-sized mass of purple crystal ore.
Beside it were piles of Demon Clan materials, including rare treasures like heavenly demon lingering dew needed for the nascent soul stage, and even some unused ancestral blood of 10,000 spirits. This ancestral blood was likely what the Asura Holy Sun tricked the Black Dragon Great Venerable into drinking back then, containing the Asura Holy Sun's own blood. It was precisely because of this that the Black Dragon Great Venerable had been controlled. This blood could be used by Yun Shang to reshape her domain, separate out the Asura Holy Sun's blood, and then distribute it to the Demon Clan members of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion.
Of course, the most important thing was still this purple crystal ore. Fang Chen flew up and looked down at the carved characters in the recess of the ore wall.
Now his soul had reached the 4 declines of heaven and man, yet when his gaze fell upon those 8 large characters, they were still extremely blurred and hard to look at directly. The thought once again arose in his heart, what characters are engraved on that mysterious seal? Even now, I still cannot look directly at them. While pondering, Fang Chen slowly took out that tattered piece of cloth. After repeated use, this tattered cloth had long lost its terrifying power that could collapse the world's barriers. He held the palm-sized cloth in his hand and scrutinized it carefully.
For now, he could try to reprint those 8 characters from the seal onto it again.
With a slight thought, he manipulated the cloth to fly into the air, slowly descending toward the recess. There seemed to be some unknown origin between this cloth and the characters on the seal.
As soon as it neared the characters, it enlarged on its own and unfurled, landing squarely and covering the 8 ancient words. Immediately after, those 8 characters were clearly imprinted on the cloth once again.
Fang Chen beckoned with his hand, and the cloth shrank back to palm size and flew into his palm. The moment it landed in his hand, a heavy, profound weight and an inexplicable oppressive presence surged over him. He could clearly feel that this cloth was completely different from before. If he were to throw it out now, it would surely unleash an unimaginably immense pressure.
Fang Chen looked down at the cloth in his palm and murmured softly, "I'll study how to use this cloth later." With that, he turned around, and his gaze fell upon the many spirit plants growing on the purple crystal ore.
He wondered inwardly about the origin of this purple crystal ore. Even without the supreme resting soil, this place could still grow such uniquely extraordinary spirit plants. Fang Chen rubbed his chin, pondering to himself, if I add some resting soil, will the plants grow even faster? Thinking thus, he no longer hesitated and sprinkled a handful of resting soil into each groove where spirit plants were growing. Especially that strange plant that could grow shoes, he gave it extra attention, specifically sprinkling a few more handfuls. Finally, Fang Chen looked toward the groove that had once nurtured the black divine tree. After pondering for a moment, he still took out the divine tree. This piece of divine tree had been in his hands for over a month. According to the cultivation ability of resting soil, it should have grown for at least 100 years. Yet until now, it had only sprouted a single purple tender leaf, and there had been no further change since. A suspicion arose in Fang Chen's heart. Could it be that the divine tree also needs to be nurtured by the purple crystal ore?
As he thought, he replanted the divine tree back into the purple crystal ore, and then generously piled on a heap of resting soil. With both approaches applied, he wanted to see if the divine tree would undergo any new changes. To Fang Chen's surprise, as soon as he smoothed out the resting soil, that tiny purple sprout actually quivered slightly and then slowly unfurled. Fang Chen was utterly astonished and couldn't help exclaiming, "This, it really needs both the purple crystal ore and resting soil." Even more surprising changes followed one after another. He saw that on the cut surface of the black divine tree, a layer of faint black viscous liquid was slowly seeping out. Fang Chen instinctively reached out to touch it, but suddenly recalling the intense pain the divine tree caused when hitting someone, he immediately withdrew his hand. He stared at that layer of liquid, thinking to himself, could it be that the source of the headache caused by the divine tree's blows is related to these secretions? Fang Chen rolled his eyes and muttered under his breath, "I need to find someone willing to give it a try." Black Dragon Great Venerable, he'll definitely be willing. Having made up his mind, he carefully scraped off that layer of black secretion with a jade chip and placed it into a small jade box. Then he took out a heart, devouring soul grass, planted it in an empty groove, and finally sprinkled a handful of resting soil. He wanted to carefully compare the difference between cultivation with both purple crystal ore and resting soil versus cultivation with resting soil alone. After doing all this, Fang Chen contentedly left the cave abode and returned outside. Fang Chen. As soon as he appeared, he heard the Black Dragon, Great Venerable, let out an infuriated roar. Fang Chen looked over and saw the Black Dragon, Great Venerable's eyes bulging, bloodshot, surging with overwhelming hatred. Fang Chen had actually succeeded in opening his cave abode. Fang Chen raised an eyebrow and with some astonishment smiled, "Oh, your memory's back." The Flower of Forgotten Dust's effect on a Great Venerable level existence was indeed quite limited. The Black Dragon Great Venerable's face contorted, and he roared furiously, "Fang Chen, my life's accumulation has all become a wedding dress for you, you little bastard." "I can't accept this." Fang Chen's expression turned serious, and he said solemnly, "Indeed, you think just leaving me one cave abode isn't enough." "Understood on it." He took out the small jade box, picked out a strand of viscous liquid, as fine as a hair, and said leisurely, "I just got something new, and I was looking for someone to test it on." "The Black Dragon Great Venerable is surely willing." The pupils of Black Dragon Great Venerable abruptly contracted. The instant that wisp of secretion appeared, a powerful unease surged from the depths of his soul. He shouted in panic, take it away quickly." Fang Chen smiled faintly, his tone flat, "No worries, try it, and you'll meet your end." With a light curl of his finger, the soul-binding chains lifted Black Dragon Great Venerable and flew him over. Amid Black Dragon Great Venerable's roars of resistance, Fang Chen dripped that strand of secretion onto his soul. Generally speaking, objects that can affect the soul are ones that can directly act upon the spirit. The strand of secretion fell upon Black Dragon Great Venerable's soul, instantly merging into the soul body. Black Dragon Great Venerable, who had been roaring defiantly just moments ago, immediately let out a heart-rending howl, his entire soul convulsing violently. "Ah, what is this?" He screamed miserably. Had the soul-binding chains not held him firmly in place, he would have been unable to control himself and rolled on the ground long ago. Fang Chen watched in astonishment. He silently compared it in his mind. When the divine wood alone struck a Great Venerable of the 5 decays, the effect was far from matching this. For instance, Binks in Great Venerable had also been hit by his stick once, and it only made her stomp her feet in pain. How could it compare to this life? Worse than death agony. It seemed, as he had predicted, the source of the divine wood's pain. Inducing effect lay in this black secretion before him. This was no small discovery. Next, he could certainly collect more of this black secretion to use in the great battle against the ancient giants. For example, smear it on a magical artifact and give an ancient giant a slash. Wouldn't that make them explode on the spot from the pain? Ah, Black Dragon Great Venerable's scream did not diminish but grew, and he shrieked nearly collapsing, "Kill me, quickly kill me." Even an old Great Venerable like him was in such agony that he wished for death, if one were to give a young Great Venerable like Butterfly Fairy or Binks in Great Venerable a dose. What kind of scene would that be? Watching Black Dragon Great Venerable howling in pain, Fang Chen lost interest in tormenting him further. His gaze turned cold, and he directly sent a soul-shaking spike into the other's body. With a muffled bang, Black Dragon Great Venerable's soul finally dissipated completely. Fang Chen exhaled lightly and said softly, "At last, one hidden trouble has been resolved." Having destroyed Black Dragon, Great Venerable's remnant soul, and gained his entire cave estate, he had settled one major matter that had weighed on his mind.
Next, it was time to handle another very important matter. He sat cross-legged and with a thought. A necklace missing its pendant appeared in his palm. This was none other than a world artifact obtained from the remains of a Myriad Earth, saint within the Sumeru Divine Prison. The Myriad Earth Heart. Regrettably, that corpse had been tampered with before, and the pendant was long gone.
This world artifact now only remained as half.
He tried to activate the necklace to see if it could be triggered like the execution decree brush, but the necklace showed no reaction. Fang Chen muttered in pain, a perfectly fine world artifact ruined just like that.
The Sumeru Divine Prison had been entered by many people over time, into whose hands that pendant had fallen was completely unknown.
Finding it would be no easier than fishing a needle from the ocean. Putting away the Myriad Earth Heart, Fang Chen then took out the Divine Moon Fruit and the scroll of the Lunar Palace Remnant Scroll. He was quite interested in the Lunar Palace Remnant Scroll, especially the third chapter, Shared Moon at Square Mountain. It allowed one to use the moon to bombard enemies from afar across space and pinpoint them.
Only lacking the power of moonlight, he had been unable to cultivate it all along.
Now that he had a Divine Moon Fruit, according to Cloud Crane, the unworthy sage, those who cultivated the path of lunar essence needed 1,000 years of accumulation to condense such vast moonlight power.
This was equivalent to a sage's lifetime of accumulation. Out of caution, he dared not eat it all, and only took a small taste.
A sweet juice burst in his mouth, instantly transforming into a gentle yet surging power that rushed into his limbs and bones. His eyes, hair, body hair, and skin all radiated a gentle moonlight. From afar, he looked like a moonlit figure, radiating lunar brilliance from head to toe.
Fang Chen clicked his tongue in amazement, exclaiming, "Just one bite, and the moonlight power is already overflowing." He set down the Divine Moon Fruit, hastily opened the Lunar Palace Remnant Scroll, and began cultivating on the spot. On a distant mountain peak,
Moon Venerable sat cross-legged, her hands forming a seal, resting quietly on her knees. At that moment, the moon was bright and stars few, the time when moonlight power was most abundant during the day. As she circulated her cultivation art, threads of moonlight power invisible to the naked eye gathered around her body, slowly condensing into a dim layer of lunar essence. Moon Venerable's eyes showed a satisfied look, and she sighed lightly, as expected of a cultivation art improved by Cold Moon Sage. Absorbing moonlight power is 20% faster than before. She raised her hand and grabbed, and a strand of moonlight power swirling around her was caught in her palm, condensing into a moonlight shard the size of a melon seed shell. She tossed this moonlight shard into a pouch at her waist, where over 100 such melon seed-sized moonlight shards already lay quietly. Moon Venerable lowered her eyes to glance at the pouch and said calmly, "With so much moonlight power, it is enough to repay the kindness of that spirit herb from Fang Chen. I can leave the heavenly, secret pavilion and return to the Moon Palace." As soon as the words left her mouth, a violent struggle suddenly emerged deep within her eyes. Her pupils sometimes were a cold moonlight hue, and sometimes returned to normal brown. Chen Xiling's soul fiercely resisted within her body. "You're not allowed to leave." She had finally returned to Fang Chen's side with great difficulty. How could she bear to leave again? Moon Venerable's tone was flat and unruffled, yet carried a hint of certainty. "It is still better to leave. I truly fear that one day I'll wake up and find myself lying naked beside Fang Chen again." Chen Xiling snorted coldly, her tone brimming with conviction. "My husband will not let you go." Moon Venerable merely smiled indifferently, a trace of mockery hidden in her smile. "He wouldn't before, but now, that may not be the case." She paused, then continued meaningfully, "He took my Moon Palace's Lunar Palace Remnant Scroll, and I imagine he has long been unable to restrain himself from starting to cultivate it. And cultivating this scroll requires moonlight power the most. What I have accumulated is exactly what he urgently needs." Chen Xiling scoffed disdainfully. "He would never sell me out for a cultivation art." Moon Venerable's expression remained indifferent, her voice cold as frost. "Is that so? Then if I ask him to let you out a little less each day, he would surely agree, wouldn't he?" Chen Xiling's heart suddenly lurched, and an uncontrollable twinge of unease surged up instantly. Moon Venerable held a faint smile at the corner of her lips, as if seeing through everything. "Don't place too high expectations on Fang Chen. As women, we must rely more on ourselves." When her words fell, she moved with lotus steps, her immortal robes fluttering lightly in the wind, her entire aura cold and noble, as if a moon palace goddess had descended to the mortal world. The next moment, her figure had already appeared before the door of Fang Chen's secluded chamber, just as she raised her jade hand to knock on the door. Suddenly, with a heaven-shaking boom, the heavy stone door of the chamber exploded apart in an instant. They saw a giant black moon eerily emerging in the center of the chamber. It shuddered violently, then transformed into countless dark arc lights that shot wildly in all directions. The sturdy chamber was the first to be unable to withstand this violent force, shattering into pieces on the spot, with splinters of stone flying. Moon Venerable's face changed slightly. She hurriedly waved her sleeve to brush away the black lunar essence surging toward her, then raised her eyes to look at Fang Chen sitting cross-legged in the center of the ruins. Her cold, clear eyes were filled with utter disbelief. She nearly cried out in shock. The second chapter of Lunar Palace Remnant Scroll, Great Dark Black Moon. Moon Venerable felt a daze, an illusion as if she had dreamed of returning to the Moon Palace. To think that someone outside the Moon Palace could cultivate the Lunar Palace Remnant Scroll to this second-layer realm. This was completely beyond logic. When she had cultivated to this chapter, she had spent a full 100 years accumulating moonlight power. Even the Silver Moon Great Venerable, to succeed in cultivation, had consumed Cold Moon Sage untold amounts of moonlight accumulation. But Fang Chen, where in the world did he obtain such immense moonlight power? The earth-shattering sounds around him instantly jolted Fang Chen out of his cultivation. He slowly opened his eyes, a trace of aftertaste flashing through them, and thought to himself, this cultivation wasn't difficult at all. It's just that the moonlight power is rare, hard for ordinary people to obtain. After only half a night of cultivation, he had already successfully entered the second chapter, and with another half night, reaching the third chapter would be no problem. Fang Chen sensed someone approaching, lifted his gaze, and upon seeing the Moon Sovereign, his eyes lit up. "You've come at the right time. I was just about to find you." The Moon Sovereign looked him over with uncertainty, forcibly suppressing her shock, and asked, "What is it?" Fang Chen took out from his bosom the pitted and gnawed divine moon fruit. To cultivate to the second level, he hadn't eaten much, just gnawed all over the surface, consuming less than 20% of the fruit's flesh. "I'd like to use this fruit to make a trade with you," Fang Chen said with a smile, tossing the fruit casually in his hand. The Moon Sovereign looked at the fruit that had been gnawed beyond recognition, and an undisguised disgust immediately appeared on her face. "Who would want something you've eaten? Wait." She suddenly sensed something amiss, and in a few quick steps she drew closer, focusing her attention to carefully perceive it. Strands of pure lunar energy, so abundant that it made her question reality, were quietly seeping out from the fruit. Just these faint wisps of energy were far more vibrant than the lunar energy she had painstakingly accumulated over these days. Her pupils constricted, and her voice carried a hint of tremor. This, what exactly is this?" Fang Chen explained, "This is a divine moon fruit containing a full 1,000 years of lunar energy. After I finish cultivating the remnant chapters of the Moon Palace, there should still be more than half left. In the spirit of not wasting food, I thought I'd transfer it to you. In exchange, you let Chen Xiling come out for half a day every day. How about that?"
What?
She had just been calculating how to repay the favor by having Chen Xiling appear less often. But Fang Chen wanted Chen Xiling to come out more. Without a second thought, the Moon Sovereign blurted out a refusal. No. Fang Chen was in no hurry, just casually weighing the divine moon fruit in his hand, and drawled, "Then this fruit." The Moon Sovereign's red lips pressed slightly together, and deep within her icy, clear eyes, a hint of unconcealable longing surfaced. For someone like her who cultivates the path of lunar essence, ample lunar energy is a peerless opportunity that can be used to break through the bottleneck of the spirit transformation realm. The lunar energy contained in half a divine moon fruit amounted to at least 500 years of accumulation. That would be enough for her to break through her shackles and reach the realm of the 5 decays of heaven and man. Moreover, she had originally been a reincarnated cultivator, and her comprehension of the spirit transformation realm was already complete. What she lacked were merely resources. With this fruit, she could step into the realm of the 5 decays of heaven and man in an extremely short time. Perhaps she could even break through before the expedition to the heavenly realm and participate in this competition for meritorious virtue. Her heart began to thump wildly. She had originally completely abandoned the idea of returning to the sage realm in the short term, but this half-divine moon fruit rekindled her hope. However, in the future, she would have to give Chen Xiling half the day.
Never mind that. Agree first for now.
After returning to the Sage Realm, she would figure out a way to repay Fang Chen's kindness, and then immediately flee.
Right, that's the plan. The Moon Sovereign gritted her teeth, as if making a firm decision, and resolutely said, "Fine, I agree. From now on, Chen Xiling will dominate the body in the daytime, and I will take over at night."
A satisfied smile appeared on Fang Chen's face, and he said neatly, "Deal." He took the divine moon fruit, bit off a large chunk with a fierce bite, and then casually tossed the remaining fruit to the Moon Sovereign.
After all, the sooner the Moon Sovereign broke through to the Sage Realm, the better it was for Chen Xiling. This deal was very worthwhile.
The Moon Sovereign joyfully took the large half of the divine moon fruit, brought it to her lips, and was about to take a bite, but when her gaze fell on the pitted surface covered
with Fang Chen's teeth marks, she couldn't help but hesitate again. Eating something Fang Chen had eaten wasn't that equivalent to an indirect kiss. Fang Chen saw through her thoughts at a glance, couldn't help but roll his eyes at her, and said, "We've already kissed, and you're still bothered by something I've eaten." Upon hearing this, the Moon Sovereign glared at him angrily, but on second thought, he had a point.
Chen Xiling and Fang Chen had been locking lips who knows how long, so it was as if she herself had already kissed Fang Chen.
Why still care about this?
Immediately, she no longer hesitated, opened her mouth, and bit off a piece of the fruit. The pure, incomparable lunar energy instantly filled her entire body, a surge of explosive sensation that she had not experienced even in her previous life, making her ecstatic. She immediately sat down cross-legged on the spot and began to cultivate. Fang Chen also swallowed the piece of fruit in his mouth, gathered his mind, and began to charge towards the third chapter of the remnant chapters of the Moon Palace. When the sun had just risen and the morning light was faint, Fang Chen slowly opened his eyes, and in his dark pupils surged a look of eager anticipation. At this moment, if another silver moon great venerable were to appear, letting him test the power of the remnant chapters of the Moon Palace would be perfect. By his feeling, this power should be rather extraordinary. The Moon Sovereign beside him had also cultivated for the entire night, her face full of uncontrolled excitement. She had already touched the edge of the fourth decay of heaven and man. If this momentum continued, breaking through to the 5 decays of heaven and man within 3 days was definitely not impossible. She glanced unconsciously at Fang Chen, and a strange feeling arose quietly in her heart. If she had stayed in the Moon Palace, she would probably still be that cultivator at the 2nd decay, racking her brains to break through to the 3rd decay. But since coming to Fang Chen's side, the realm of the 5 decays of heaven and man was now within reach, and returning to the Sage Realm was even more promising. It truly confirmed Fang Chen's earlier words. Back then she had desperately sought to leave Fang Chen and return to the Moon Palace. What was she actually after?
Sigh.
She sighed silently, glanced at the sky, and finally fulfilled her promise. Her soul slowly retreated deep within the body, allowing Chen Xiling to take control of this physical form. Chen Xiling had been watching the outside situation all along. Now that she was free, she immediately ran forward joyfully and threw herself at the seated Fang Chen, knocking him to the ground. "Husband, from now on, I can accompany you through the entire day." Fang Chen was bowled over by her collision. He patted her back, both amused and exasperated, and said softly, "One day, I'll let you accompany me in the day and also at night." Chen Xiling gave a sly grin, leaned close to his ear, and asked, "What's the difference between accompanying you at night and during the day?" A playful glint appeared in Fang Chen's eyes, and he asked in return, "Want to find out?" His hands immediately began to wander mischievously, and Chen Xiling's cheeks instantly flushed bright red. She buried her face in his chest, not saying a word, simply appearing to let Fang Chen do as he pleased. Just as their breathing grew increasingly rapid, and the atmosphere became amorous, a long, mist-loud laugh suddenly shattered the intimate atmosphere between the two. Brother Fang, I've done it." From 2 distant secret chambers, 2 strong experts with astonishing auras emerged one after another. The first was a refined middle-aged man at the 9th level of nascent soul, exuding an imposing righteousness, and his appearance was exactly the same as Jiang Wuya back then. Fang Chen was instantly overjoyed. After a month of cultivation, Jiang Wuya had finally nurtured the Moon Palace embryo into a complete body and successfully possessed it. Although his cultivation had regressed from the 1st decay of heaven and man back to the 9 apertures, nascent soul stage, and he had once fallen into madness, With the little Buddha venerable and that Buddha's prayer beads, it would be no difficult task for him to re-enter the spirit transformation realm. As for the person who walked out from the other secret chamber, it made Fang Chen stare, completely dumbfounded on the spot. It was a woman's face of extreme beauty, with exceptionally soft facial lines, the epitome of stunning beauty. Even though Fang Chen had seen existences like Ling Yin, who seemed like an immortal out of a painting, and even had a celestial beauty wife like Yun Shang. At this moment, he was still utterly stunned by this breathtakingly beautiful woman's face. Even Chen Xiling, a woman herself, was dumbfounded, murmuring, "Who is this? Even as a woman, I find her incredibly beautiful." However, when the two of them shifted their gaze downwards to look at that body, they instantly turned into stone in unison. It was a body over 3 meters tall, towering as tall as 2 people, covered all over with bulging muscles, a brawny physique, as if cast from steel. The face of an angel, the body of a demon. This immense contrast gave people an extremely strong sense of vertigo and chaos. Fang Chen collected himself and tentatively asked, "Brother Liang Feiyan, is that you?" Brother Fang. Hearing Fang Chen's question, Liang Feiyan's face blossomed into a smile, and that dream, like beauty comparable to Yun Shang's when smiling, was exceptionally soul-stirring. He let out sweet, coquettish laughter as he charged over with massive strides, his heavy footfalls making the very earth tremble and hum. Fang Chen felt a sudden vertigo, his vision darkening. Fang Chen's brows furrowed deeply, a dense cloud of doubt swirling in his heart. It makes no sense. Liang Feiyan and Zhong Wuya clearly used the same embryo, both nourished with the blood of the merciful heart sage. Yet how could the cultivated flesh bodies differ so drastically, to such an extreme extent? "Don't come any closer." Fang Chen abruptly raised a hand to halt him, unable to accept Liang Feiyan's current, eye-searing appearance. Liang Feiyan froze for a moment, then cast him an utterly innocent look, and in a pitifully delicate voice said, "What's the matter, Brother Fang? Isn't my new flesh body good?" Chen Xiling, watching from the side, bit her lip, her tone filled with resentment and grievance. "Why do I feel like I, lost to a man? Is he even playing by the rules?" Fang Chen simply turned his face away, the corner of his eye twitching, not daring to look at him for a second longer. His face dark as thunder, he demanded in a heavy voice, "What happened to you? Why have you ended up looking like this?" Liang Feiyan spread his hands helplessly and sighed. "Ah, my cultivation has fallen so far behind yours, I had to think of some shortcuts. Besides the sage blood, I added a bit of angel blood, then some Asura blood, and finally a dash of demon blood. And, as a result, it turned out like this." Fang Chen's eyes bulged, nearly popping out of their sockets. Human, angel, Asura, and demon, so all the bloodlines that could be gathered on this middle continent, he had just thrown them all in at once. Messing around like that, it would be a miracle if the resulting flesh body turned out normal. Back when he handed the embryo over to Liang Feiyan, he had specifically warned him not to thoughtlessly overnourish it, lest the flesh body become too overpowering and his weak soul suffer backlash. That kid Liang Feiyan, you could say he took the advice to heart, and yet you could also say he completely ignored it. Fang Chen rubbed his temples forcefully, suppressing his exasperation, and asked, "Where did you get the angel blood from?" Asura blood and demon blood weren't hard to come by, but angel blood, until now, only Xia Keoj possessed it, and her angelic identity had never been revealed. Liang Feiyan shrugged his shoulders and said casually, "It fell from the sky during your battle with the young emperor." Fang Chen was briefly stunned, then suddenly understood. So when Yun Wang Xiao's flesh body was blasted apart, some of her blood fell onto the middle continent, and this guy picked it up for free. Staring at Liang Feiyan's utterly bizarre body, Fang Chen's brow knotted into a tight frown. "You actually want this body? You'd be better off cultivating a new embryo from scratch." But Liang Feiyan had already completed body snatching and could never undergo a second one. Hearing this, Liang Feiyan waved his hands repeatedly, his face brimming with pride. "Hey, don't underestimate this body of mine." With a slight thought, 3 types of spirit herbs materialized in his palm, each corresponding to humans, Asura, and demons. By all reason, spirit herbs of different races could only adapt to the flesh bodies of their corresponding races. But Liang Feiyan opened his mouth and with a gulp, swallowed all 3 completely different herbs at once. Immediately after, his aura surged violently, at a speed visible to the naked eye. Fang Chen's eyes rounded again, his tongue tying itself in knots. "Why, you..." He was so shocked, he could barely form a coherent sentence. Liang Feiyan put his hands on his hips and laughed triumphantly. "You've noticed, I can use resources from all 4 races, and I can even stack their effects. In other words, I can follow the human path of nascent soul madness, the bloodline path of Asura and angels, and the hybrid path of demons. At this rate, my cultivation speed will absolutely surpass anyone of the same rank. Soon I'll reach the pinnacle of life and marry a rich, beautiful wife. Ha ha ha. Chen Xiling blinked her large, watery eyes and leaned close to Fang Chen's ear to whisper, "Husband, am I misunderstanding? He's now a fusion of 4 races." Fang Chen stared blankly for a long while, then smiled bitterly. "That's exactly what you're thinking." After a pause, he added helplessly, "Of course, you could also call it a hodgepodge." He clutched his head, feeling the world spin around him. For a demon to simultaneously walk the human path of madness and the bloodline path was already extremely rare among the myriad races. He never imagined there could be an even greater freak out there. "Brother Fang, don't worry." Liang Feiyan immediately thumped his muscular chest with a bang-bang, solemnly vowing, "Brothers in the heart. When I'm rich and successful in the future, I will never forget Brother Fang's kindness." In the heart? Hearing this, Fang Chen's entire body broke out in goosebumps, and he frantically waved his hands. "No, don't keep me in your heart." He then straightened his face and added sternly, "And one more thing, you are absolutely never allowed to stand behind me again." Huh? Chen Xiling blinked, paused for a moment before suddenly realizing, quickly covered her mouth, and burst into uncontrollable giggles with a PFFT. Fang Chen, his face dark, casually pulled out a huge pile of cultivation resources for Asura, demon, human, and angel races, and unceremoniously tossed them at Liang Feiyan, barking, "Gee," irritably, "go cultivate somewhere else." Only after watching Liang Feiyan scamper off with delight did Fang Chen's mood settle a little. However, when he lowered his head to look at Chen Xiling, still blushing with a trace of rosy glow in his arms, a surge of inexplicable anger flared up again. There are only mispronounced names, never misgiven nicknames. That son of a bitch can change anything, but he just can't change his talent for ruining the mood. With this interruption, there was no way to continue their tender moment. He had to release Chen Xiling and deal with Zhang Wuya's matters first. At this moment, Zhang Wuya's body was lustrous and robust, brimming with the vigorous life force of a perfected 9-layer nascent soul realm, just one step away from stepping into the god transformation stage. Fang Chen led him to the secret chamber of the little Buddha Venerable. "Greetings, derivative sage Buddha." The little Buddha Venerable and 5 elderly bodhisattvas all rose to their feet, pressing their palms together in salutation. Soft Buddhist light radiated from their bodies, while wisdom gleamed in their eyes. In the days they had taken charge of the Buddha's prayer beads, they had gained considerable benefits. Fang Chen nodded slightly and got straight to the point. "This is Taoist Zhang Wuya, who has just undergone body snatching and recultivation. Provide him with guidance and help him return to the god transformation realm soon." The little Buddha Venerable pressed his palms together in acknowledgement, paused briefly, then respectfully said, "Derivative sage Buddha, there are also several human nascent souls outside the mountain gate who have fallen deep into madness. Might we send for them? This disciple can provide them guidance together." The more times the Buddha's prayer beads were activated, the greater the benefits they, the monastic group, could gain. Naturally, they did not mind the extra effort. Only then did Fang Chen recall that outside the mountain gate, it was still packed and blocked by people from various sects. His powerful divine sense instantly spread out, and after a quick scan, he subconsciously said, "I'll ask the pavilion master to." He stopped mid-sentence, then shook his head. "Forget it, I'll go myself. There are several important old acquaintances among them who require my personal reception." Outside the mountain gate, hundreds of powerful cultivators from various sects of the other 7 provinces had gathered outside. Almost all of them were 8 aperture nascent souls, along with their accompanying disciples and juniors. Due to the rewards from the meritorious divine steel, the Middle Continent's late-stage nascent souls, which had once been nearly wiped out, had in this short time surged back in existence in the hundreds, all 8 aperture nascent souls. Additionally, with the hundreds of aperture, opening divine nails gifted to the Middle Continent by young Master Xiang, many now had the qualifications to break through to the 9 aperture nascent soul realm. They all wished to leverage the little Buddha Venerable's power to ascend another step before the expedition to the heavenly realm. Among the crowd were figures from the Jian family. Jian Linyuan and his older sister, Jian Weishuang, along with the newly promoted 8 aperture nascent soul elder of their clan, waited silently in an inconspicuous corner. "Brother, maybe we shouldn't trouble Senior Fang." Jian Weishuang was getting cold feet. They had been waiting here for 10 days already, yet still had not managed to see Fang Chen. Giant Linyuan looked at the crowds of supplicants all around, a trace of bitterness tugging at the corner of his mouth. Among those who came, there were not only forces from the 3 divine sects and 7 great teachings of their own province, but also top-tier major powers from other provinces. Opportunities to break through to God transformation were scarce to begin with, and it would never fall to their tiny giant family. He sighed softly. "You two go back first. I'll wait a while longer." He solemnly retrieved a spatial storage artifact from his breast. Inside lay an ancient, mottled arena. That was precisely the extraterrestrial arena where Fang Chen once comprehended the art of selfless purification. Giant Linyuan's eyes revealed a trace of sorrow. He said in a low voice, "Before the family head departed for the battlefield of the fire worship sect, he instructed us, if he does not return, then give this arena to Fang Chen. I will wait for him here to deliver the arena into his hands with my own." Jian Weishuang and the accompanying 8-aperture nascent soul elder both dimmed their gazes upon hearing this. The family head, Jian Lanfang, along with his battle corpse, had forever remained on the battlefield of the fire worship sect, never to return. Nearly all the late-stage nascent soul experts of the clan had also fallen entirely in the great battle against the ancient giants before the Forbidden Ground. Now, only one late-stage 8-aperture nascent soul elder of the older generation was barely holding on. The clan members at the early and middle stages of nascent soul had also perished in droves. Now the giant family, its talents withered, no longer possessed the glory it had before the war. With the reshuffling of the powers in the Taking Grand region, the giant family had already declined to a mid-tier clan. In another 60-year cycle, it might even fall to the lowest ranks. In 100 years, perhaps there would be no more giant family in this world. Just like those families that had long vanished into the river of history, the giant family would be buried in the dust, utterly forgotten. Very well, since our giant family lacks the power to fight in the heavenly realm, we shall give this arena to Senior Fang. I hope it can assist him, allowing him to carry on the family head's unfulfilled wish and continue the battle against the ancient giants. Ninth uncle, let us go. Jian Weishuang and the clan elder turned around, ready to soar into the sky and depart. Just then, the crowd suddenly stirred. It's the Starfire Venerable. The Starfire Venerable has arrived. The crowd surged forward excitedly. Jian Linyuan's face also showed a hint of joy. He hastily got up, intending to rush over. But as soon as he stood up, he was unceremoniously shoved aside by the late-stage nascent soul experts of the Divine Travel sect. Get out of the way, don't block the path. Jian Linyuan was sent tumbling, his internal chi and blood churning violently, and he plummeted straight down from midair. Fortunately, Jian Weishuang and Ninth Uncle reacted swiftly, darting forward to catch him. Ninth Uncle's eyes blazed with fury. He opened his mouth to rebuke them, but Jian Linyuan hurriedly raised a hand to stop him and whispered, "No, I'm fine." The current Jian family truly cannot afford to clash with the 3 divine sects and 7 great teachings. As they stood waiting among the crowd, Jian Linyuan lowered his voice and consoled himself. "A little grievance, just endure it and it will pass. We absolutely cannot offend anyone. Let's wait a while. Once Senior Fang has finished receiving others, we'll go forward to pay our respects." Before his words could fade, a strong hand suddenly and steadily grasped his arm, and a gentle force helped him to his feet. Jian Linyuan looked up and instantly widened his eyes, exclaiming in surprise, "Senior Fang." Ninth Uncle beside him also paled, hurriedly bending at the waist and bowing deeply in salute. A complex look flashed rapidly in Jian Weishuang's eyes. Back when Fang Chen had taken her adventuring in the southern heaven realm, he had only been at the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Back then, the gap between them had not been so vast. But now the Fang Chen before her eyes had already reached the divine transformation realm, and had even defeated the young emperor, becoming the foremost divine transformation, cultivator in the central plains, shaking the world. She could no longer even look up to see his limits. Jian Weishuang shed her former carefree demeanor and immediately bowed deeply, saying with a respectful tone, "Junior greets Senior Fang." Fang Chen sighed inwardly. Old friends from the past were, after all, drifting further and further away. He helped all 3 to their feet and said gently, "You two, brother and sister, need not be so formal with me." Fang Chen's gaze shifted to Ninth Uncle and asked, "This 8-aperture nascent soul elder of the giant family has also come to seek the Tao and achieve divine transformation, right? Do you have the aperture, opening divine nail?" Ninth Uncle was instantly overwhelmed with favor and quickly replied, Yes, thank you for your concern, Senior Fang."
Fang Chen nodded slightly. Prepare yourself. First, break through to the 9. Aperture, nascent soul.
I will bring you inside later. Thank you, Senior Fang. Thank you, Senior Fang. Ninth uncle trembled with excitement. No one had expected that Fang Chen, ignoring the representatives of so many great powers, would actually extend a helping hand first to assist the Jian family. Jian Linyuan's throat tightened with emotion. He bowed deeply once more and said, "Thank you." Fang Chen reached out and patted his shoulder, saying, "It should have been me who personally visited the Jian family and lent a hand to your late, stage nascent souls. Making you travel so far to find me and wait here specifically is my fault." Recalling the past, Jian Lanfeng, with only a 7, aperture nascent soul body, commanded battle corpses across 3 major battles, repeatedly turning the tide. Without him, the final outcome of that battle in the Taking Grand region would have been hard to predict. The Jian family had rendered illustrious military achievements, yet their clan had declined because of it. How could he bear to stand idly by? Fang Chen looked at them and said sincerely, "Junior brother Jian, if you don't mind, why not relocate the Jian family to Azure Lai Mountain? I will carve out a piece of land next to the Heavens Mystery Pavilion for the Jian family to settle anew." Hearing this, the 3 members of the Jian family were both shocked and overjoyed. The Heavens Mystery Pavilion was the number 1 sect in the Taking Grand region. No, even across the entire Central Plains, it ranked among the very top. With such a super sect looking after them, why should the Jian family worry about its revival? Jian Weishuang wept with joy. Her knees buckled as she prepared to kneel before Fang Chen. "Thank you for your great kindness, Senior Fang." Fang Chen casually waved his hand, and a gentle surge of energy held her steady. He said, "You two, brother and sister, go back to the clan and make preparations. This elder of the Jian family will accompany me back to the mountain gate." Jian Linyuan nodded excitedly, cupped his hands, and was about to turn and leave, but Jian Weishuang suddenly recalled something and smacked him on the forehead. She scolded, "You blockhead, how could you forget the main business?" Only then did Jian Linyuan realize. He hurriedly pulled out the spatial storage artifact from his breast and respectfully offered it forward, saying, "Senior Fang, this is something our family head, before he left for the fire worship sect battlefield, instructed us to deliver to you personally." Fang Chen took the storage artifact and sent his divine sense inside. His pupils involuntarily contracted slightly. The ancient arena. He had once ascended this arena twice, respectively mastering the first and second layers of the art of selfless purification. The final 3rd layer remained, but he had not yet had the opportunity to cultivate it. It seemed that Jian Lanfang, knowing that his expedition to the fire worship sect was fraught with peril, had entrusted this arena, along with the entire Jian family, to him. Fang Chen's gaze quivered slightly. He solemnly put away the storage artifact and said in a deep voice, "Thank you. Before the expedition to the heavenly realm, let us go together to the cemetery to pay respects to Elder Jian." Tears welled up in the eyes of Jian Linyuan and Jian Weishuang. They nodded heavily, then cupped their hands in farewell and departed. Witnessing this scene, the experts from various regions all fell silent. No wonder, from ordinary martial artists down to the Grand Libationer, the entire Taking Grand region so revered Fang Chen, setting aside his terrifying strength, who would not respect from the bottom of their heart a king who knows how to pity the weak and protect the descendants of meritorious servants. Fang Chen's gaze swept over the crowd, and in one glance he spotted Song Lingyu, who was Hua Wang's master. Locked in Fang Chen's gaze, Song Lingyu looked a bit embarrassed. She hurriedly explained, "You, don't misunderstand, I'm just here to take my disciple home." Fang Chen, seeing her nervous appearance, couldn't help but smile and said, "Then come along with us." Song Lingyu's heart pounded wildly. Didn't his words imply that she too could experience the legendary guidance and attempt to break through to the divine transformation realm? Those experts who understood the relationship between Song Lingyu and Fang Chen all secretly slapped their thighs, their hearts filled with both envy and jealousy. "What am I lacking compared to her? Nothing but a beautiful disciple who can settle debts." This woman, riding on her disciple's coattails and encountering such a wonderful student, had truly struck a stroke of incredible luck. Amid the interweaving of countless envious and jealous gazes, Song Lingyu excitedly walked quickly to Fang Chen's side. Fang Chen then swept his gaze over the remaining people. He prioritized selecting late, stage nascent souls from the sects of Taking Grand region, followed by those from the Great Wilderness region, Pill region, and Divine Weapon region. Finally, it was the turn of those from the Myriad Demons Great Prefecture and the Gixu Prefecture. In total, he had selected just over 20 individuals. If everything went smoothly, the Central Land would soon welcome 20 more powerhouses at the Divine Transformation Realm.
Looking at the remaining late, nascent soul cultivators, Fang Chen waved his hand and said,
"The opportunities for divine transformation are limited. You may all disperse now." None dared complain, and furthermore, those Fang Chen had chosen were all from factions that had made immense contributions to taking Great Prefecture during the ancient Giant War, or from sects with extremely close ties to him.
This left them with nothing to say.
After dismissing the crowd, Fang Chen prepared to lead these 20 into the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion and depart. At that moment, a wave of sage-level pressure materialized out of thin air behind him. A calm, level voice rang out faintly, "Starfire Venerable, have you not left us waiting long enough?" Without turning around, Fang Chen knew who had arrived. He waved toward the rebellious brat and the little tiger at the mountain gate and instructed "You two, escort them to the little Buddha's secret chamber." Receiving the order, the two little spirit beasts promptly led the group away. Fang Chen remained alone, turning slowly to face the newcomers. At their head was a female Asura emperor in a red long robe, her aura profoundly restrained yet exuding an oppressive calm like a mountain at rest. Her figure was slender and graceful. Though her features were not breathtakingly stunning, she was still a beauty. Her most distinctive trait was that supremely tranquil gaze, revealing a composure that remained unruffled by favor or disgrace. A calm that would stay unchanged even if Mount Tai crumbled before her. Compared to the 10 Asura emperors behind her, who were glaring at Fang Chen with fury, their auras surging like tidal waves. This female Asura emperor actually made Fang Chen feel a faint pressure. His intuition told him that this woman was by no means simple. Keeping his gaze fixed on the female Asura emperor before him, Fang Chen asked, "Which one is the Asura emperor who used the truce banner and was sent to serve our central land?" Without a change in expression, the Asura empress produced an Asura sacred blood the size of an eyeball. The moment the sacred blood appeared, it radiated an oppressive holy pressure. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes. This was the opportunity promised by the Hell Realm to break through to Asura Emperor, wasn't it? At present, 2 Asura kings in the Central Land were awaiting their breakthroughs. One was Dongfang Kanyu, the other Lu Zhu. Yet this opportunity existed only as a single portion. But no matter, he could simply replicate it with the Dog Bowl. It would just require that unlucky Realm Lord to sacrifice a bit more of his origin source again. Fang Chen looked the female Asura Emperor up and down and asked, "Unless I'm mistaken, you are the exchanged Asura Emperor. What is your name?" Qingju, the female Asura Emperor, reported her name with unflappable composure. Fang Chen asked further, "Do you understand the significance of coming to the Central Land?" Qingju's tone remained as placid as water. "I understand. From this day forward, I am the slave of the Central Land, to be driven as it pleases." She paused, then asked in return, "Shall I be fitted with shackles now?" Hearing this, Fang Chen let out a soft chuckle. He was beginning to like this female Asura Emperor. Talking to her was incredibly easy, with no need to waste words. This feeling was strangely familiar. He shook his head and said crisply, "Not for now. Until our interests diverge, I have no need to guard against you." Qingju looked at Fang Chen, and the corner of her mouth curved slightly upward as she said, "Thank you." Their exchange was brief and efficient, leaving both feeling thoroughly at ease. Taking the Asura sacred blood from her hand, Fang Chen then turned his gaze to the 10 Asura emperors and asked, "You must be the ones who have come to exchange for the remnant soul of the Yellow Springs Realm Lord, correct?" An elder burly Asura emperor said with a dark face, his voice booming like a great bell, "Human, release our Yellow Springs Realm Lord, and the 10 of us willingly stay as hostages." Fang Chen merely shrugged indifferently, his tone tinged with mockery. "Spare me such words that insult one's intelligence. If I release her, you 10 Asura emperors will simply turn around and leave. What could I do about it?" Without waiting for the Asura emperors to ask further, he pointed directly at the firmament. Fang Chen's voice suddenly rose, resolute and unwavering. "I want you to join forces with our Central Land cultivators and attack the Southern Heaven Realm."
"What?"
The 10 Asura emperors' faces all changed dramatically. Attack the Heaven Realm. With just this tiny Central Land. The last time the Hell Realm attacked the Heaven Realm was 10,000 years ago. For their generation, that had long become an unreachable legend. But now, this small Central Land actually dared to proclaim it would attack the Heaven Realm. Such audacity was hard not to find soul, shakingly awe-inspiring. But to drag them, the Asura emperors of the Hell Realm, into this life, and death struggle. On what grounds? What if they refused? Did Fang Chen truly dare to destroy the remnant soul of the Yellow Springs Realm Lord? The elderly Asura Emperor's expression turned cold, and he began to speak. We will not. Before he could finish, Qingjiu, who stood at the very front, suddenly interrupted. She uttered 2 words with absolute finality. We'll go, all of us. At this, the 10 Asura Emperors all turned to stare at her, brows furrowed. What, the central land attacking the Heaven Realm has nothing to do with our Hell Realm. We have no obligation to get involved. Another Asura Emperor looked at her with bewilderment and said in a deep voice, Qingjiu, have you lost your mind? Promising them so rashly. Qingjiu lifted her eyes, her gaze placid yet profound as she looked toward the heavens, and spoke slowly. In all matters, one must see further. She paused, then continued, the ancient giants are the common mortal enemies of both the Hell Realm and the Central Land. We may shut our doors and fight each other, but when facing the ancient giants, all must be set aside to unite. The ancient giants entrenched in the Southern Heaven Realm have just suffered a devastating defeat in the Central Land and are now in their weakest state ever. If our 2 realms join forces and strike, we can eradicate this mightiest of old enemies at the smallest cost. Fang Chen stood with his hands behind his back, a smile of appreciation on his face as he watched Qingjiu steadily. This female Asura Emperor's decisiveness and foresight suited him more and more. Once Qingjiu finished, he unhurriedly lowered his hands and spoke clearly. Gentlemen, I, Fang Chen, have not yet finished speaking. Releasing the remnant soul of the Yellow Springs Realm Lord is merely one reward. His gaze swept across the 10 Asura Emperors one by one, his tone steady and powerful. There is another reward. A secret realm containing a complete saint's body. As his words fell, the faces of the 10 Asura Emperors shifted repeatedly. Even the normally unflappable Qingjiu could not hide a notable flicker in her eyes. A saint's body, such an unparalleled opportunity, was rare across all the Myriad realms. One must know that even lofty figures like the Tongyuan Realm Lord and the Yellow Springs Realm Lord were still desperately waiting for a saint's body. If they could truly bring back intelligence about this secret realm, they could scarcely imagine how the 2 Realm Lords would reward them in their overwhelming delight. With just a few casual bestowals of cultivation insights, wouldn't it be easy to raise their karmic power, long stagnant, to a higher level? The 10 Asura Emperors exchanged glances, and finally, the elder Asura Emperor stepped forward and declared heavily, Fine, we will go. He then added, with solemn emphasis, however, we will only follow Qingjiu's orders. We absolutely will not be commanded by your human army. Clearly, if the humans intended to use them as cannon fodder, this battle would not be so amusing. Fang Chen smiled slightly, agreed. His expression then turned stern as he said gravely, but all of this hinges on a total victory in this war. If we are defeated, then I, Fang Chen, will perish in the Southern Heaven Realm along with the remnant soul of the Yellow Springs Realm Lord. The elderly Asura Emperor gave a proud smile and said, Rest assured, now that we have pledged to join the battle, we will fight with everything we have. Only then did Fang Chen break into a smile. He cupped his hands and announced in a resonant voice, Then let us welcome the 10 Asura Emperor Seniors from the Hell Realm. Everyone, please enter my heavenly secrets pavilion, so we may discuss in detail. Accompanied by the 11 Asura Emperors, Fang Chen entered the main hall, and both sides officially finalized all matters regarding the assault on the Heaven Realm. At this moment, the massive stone that had been hanging high in Fang Chen's heart finally settled halfway down. The 11 Asura Emperors were now secured. Next, he only awaited those sage lords still beyond the outer heavens. If he could recruit 10 more sages to aid the battle, then attacking the Southern Heaven Realm would be like a mighty force slicing through bamboo, utterly unstoppable. The ultimate mission that the Central Plains had bitterly guarded for 10,000 years would also be thoroughly accomplished by his hand. After the matter was concluded, Fang Chen personally settled them one by one into various secret chambers. To avoid disturbing the normal cultivation of those within the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, he specifically instructed the Asura Emperors to carefully restrain their auras. Once everything was properly arranged, he turned around and returned to his own secret chamber. Fang Chen first flipped his hand and revealed a treasure shaped like a dog bowl, then decisively tossed the Asura sacred blood, which was as large as an eyeball, inside. As a gentle, warm glow spread out, a brand, new Asura sacred blood of the same size reappeared before his eyes. Its luster was rosy and translucent, as if it had just been refined from the body of a peak Asura Emperor, exceptionally fresh. With this, 2 portions of Asura Emperor fortune are gathered. Fang Chen nodded in satisfaction. In a moment, I will go find Lu Zhu and Dongfang Canyu. He carefully put away the Asura sacred blood, then immediately retrieved the arena that Jian Lanfang had entrusted to him before departing. Fang Chen gazed at the arena, slightly moved, and whispered to himself, "Senior, my thanks. In this world, shaking feat of annihilating the Southern Heaven Realm, I, Fang Chen, guarantee that a share of the credit will be counted to your giant family." He took a deep breath, no longer hesitated, and with a leap landed steadily on the arena. The third layer of the selfless pure dust art, its core invisibility effect, can actually deceive giant figures at the Sage Realm. Once mastered, unless he encounters a supreme existence of the Three Calamities realm, or a peerless powerhouse like the Nine Suns Giant Emperor, almost no one in the world could easily see through his whereabouts. What Jian Lanfang left him was not merely an arena, it was clearly an immense, generous gift. He slowly closed his eyes, sank all his mind into it, and began silently comprehending the supreme mysteries of the third layer. On the other side, in the distant depths of the Hell Realm, a sudden, near-hysterical scream came from the Lord of the Parameter Realm. "Just which damned bastard is it? Will you ever stop? This realm, Lord, I'm about to be drained dry by you." Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. On this day, the light of the teleportation array abruptly blazed to life. A man in a long robe with delicate and effeminate features walked out first, closely followed by a young maiden. The maiden had shoulder-length hair and a slender figure. Her light green robe was gently lifted by the breeze, like a swaying willow by the riverbank, utterly charming and impossible not to adore. The moment she stepped out of the teleportation array, she eagerly looked down at the layered halls of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion below, her bright eyes filled with hopeful searching. At that very moment, the Fang Chen first-grade pavilion master sensed them, and his figure abruptly appeared before the two, then bowed deeply with the utmost respect. "Greetings, Senior 9, Nether." The arrivals were none other than the 9 Nether Demon Sovereign and Ling Shu. The 9 Nether Demon Sovereign nodded slightly, his gaze casually sweeping over the secret chamber where little Buddha was situated, and a trace of surprise immediately surfaced on his face. Next, when his perception swept past the secret chambers of those like Qingjiu, he clearly detected some unusual auras, and a flash of shock and suspicion crossed his expression. He couldn't help but mutter softly, "This Heavenly Secrets Pavilion has been established for less than half a year, hasn't it? If that lad Fang keeps stirring things up like this, what role will the other provinces of the Central Plains have left?" He had originally only agreed to Ling Shu's request to escort her back to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion for a quick visit. But he never imagined that as soon as he arrived, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion would deliver a heavy blow to him. The 9 Nether Demon Sovereign withdrew his gaze, scanned the surroundings, but failed to detect any trace of Fang Chen, and couldn't help asking, "Where is that brat?" The Fang Chen first-grade pavilion master hastily reporting to Senior, "Fang Chen is currently in closed door cultivation." Hearing this, the 9 Nether Demon Sovereign furrowed his brow slightly, still in seclusion. Today, the Grand Libationer is supposed to summon all the strong warriors of the Central Plains to jointly finalize the expedition to the Heaven Realm. Besides, this disciple of mine has been longing for ages just to see him once. Having said this, he directly ordered, "Go, ask him to come out of seclusion." Upon hearing this, Ling Shu's bright eyes instantly dimmed. She and her master had come with such difficulty, so why did it have to be right when Fang Chen was in seclusion? Afraid that her master's urging might disturb Fang Chen's cultivation, she quickly spoke up, "Master, it's fine." She pursed her lips, and her voice unconsciously dropped. "Actually, I don't really want to see him that much." Before her voice faded, she suddenly felt a violent tightening around her waist. It was a pair of solid, powerful hands that wrapped tightly around her, and she was immediately pulled into a scorching yet immensely broad embrace. Ling Shu subconsciously let out a startled cry. Before she could react, Fang Chen's familiar, slightly teasing voice sounded in her ear. "Oh, you really don't want to see me?" "Ah, brother." Ling Shu was both surprised and delighted, and quickly turned around. However, behind her, there was nothing but empty air. The 9 Nether Demon Sovereign's gaze also shot over sharply, and a rare expression of shock appeared on his face. Because, with the terrifying cultivation of a second Calamity Realm sage, from his perspective, he too could not see Fang Chen's figure at all. He could only barely pinpoint Fang Chen's current location by relying on the wisp of aura that Fang Chen had voluntarily released when speaking just now. What an astonishing invisibility art, the 9 Nether Demon Sovereign sincerely praised. "If you had concealed your aura and remained motionless just now, I might not have discovered your existence." One must know he was a second Calamity Realm sage, who had long grasped the superficial layers of heaven and earth's laws. His perception of all things in the world had long transcended the level of the 5 senses and 6 consciousnesses, reaching the height of laws. Fang Chen, at such an age, was actually able to shield against his law-based perception. This was simply too terrifying. The 9 nether demon sovereigns suppressed the shock in his heart, thought for a moment, then flipped his hand and took out the primordial seed, completely pitch black. Previously in the void, Fang Chen had secretly stuffed this seed to him, telling him to use it against the terrifying 7 Suns giant emperor, but he had always been reluctant to use it. Catch returning it to you, the 9 nether demon sovereigns said, then tossed the seed back. Fang Chen immediately deactivated the selfless pure dust art, his figure suddenly appearing out of thin air, and with a stretch of his hand, he steadily caught it in his palm. Grasping the primordial seed, a flash of joy could not help but pass through Fang Chen's eyes. With such a supreme treasure, combined with his own heaven, defying invisibility art, if he launched a sudden ambush, he now had a real hope of smashing a giant emperor, or even a Sir Sage, to death in one strike. Brother is so amazing. Ling Shu's eyes were already full of stars, and she praised with a sweet, sticky voice. For her, the emotional value part was always delivered in full. Fang Chen turned his head, gave her a gentle smile. You call that amazing? Let me show you something even more amazing. All right. Ling Shu had lived in the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion for quite some time, influenced daily by what she saw and heard. How could she not know that her good brother, once he got Siri, us, could fight for 3 whole days and nights? Her face instantly flushed completely red, and her voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. See it here. Of course, Fang Chen nodded matter-of-factly, then grabbed her small hand and directly reached into his own bosom. In that instant, Ling Shu felt her heart about to leap out of her throat. Her master was still watching from the side. But very quickly, her fingertips touched something cold and hard. Pulling it out, she saw it was a spatial storage device with a simple, ancient design. Ling Shu was stunned, and she stared blankly at Fang Chen. You meant this amazing thing. Is this it? Fang Chen leaned down half smiling, staring into her eyes, and asked back, What else? What did you think it was? Only then did Ling Shu suddenly realize that she had been thoroughly teased by Fang Chen. She was both shy and embarrassed, could only stamp her foot weakly, and said in a coquettish tone, Brother, you're so bad. Fang Chen laughed heartily, stopped teasing her, and said gently, All right. Quickly see what's inside. Ling Shu did as told, picked up that spatial storage device, and swept her divine sense inside. She saw that within the storage space, strands of golden blood threads emitting an aura of immortality were quietly suspended. Each strand of golden blood contained a demon saint's pressure so pure it was suffocating, causing her demon race physique to instantly generate a deadly, nearly uncontrollable desire. Demon saint blood. Ling Shu's crystal. Clear eyes widened roundly, her delicate little face full of incredulous shock. Fang Chen gently pulled her back into his arms and softly explained, This journey to the void is far, and the days long. You can slowly refine these demon saint bloods on the way. Consider it my parting gift to you in advance. It turned out that from beginning to end, Fang Chen had been silently preparing for her departure all along. These demon saint bloods, even for her Master 9 Nether Demon Venerable, were peerless divine treasures extremely hard to find. Fang Chen must have expended untold effort, right? Looking at the storage device in her palm, Ling Shu's eyes instantly glistened with sparkling tears. In that moment, she suddenly felt a bit of regret. Regret for agreeing to go with her master to that distant void. Brother, Ling Shu murmured emotionally, her voice carrying unending reluctance and attachment. Fang Chen raised his hand, gently stroked her head, and said softly, Train well under Senior 9 Nether. I hope we will meet again someday. Tears shimmered in Ling Shu's eyes. She suddenly threw her arms around Fang Chen's waist, pressing her cheek deeply against his warm chest. 1,000 words. At this moment, all were left unsaid. The two held each other quietly for a while, until the heavenly mechanism pavilion token at Fang Chen's waist suddenly emitted a rapid buzzing. He picked up the token to look, and it turned out that the Grand Libationer of Taking Great Prefecture had issued a message to all warriors of Taking Great Prefecture. On the token appeared a line of text. All warriors at the nascent soul stage and above, assemble at Tianju in half a day. Fang Chen understood instantly that this was to discuss the many matters of the expedition to the heavenly realm. Presumably, the Grand Libationers of the other prefectures had similarly notified everyone. Only half a day left. Fang Chen silently went over the many matters before the great battle, most of these had already been settled in the past few days. Especially in the past 2 days, he had not only cultivated the third layer of the selfless dust, purifying art to the state of great perfection, but also successfully cultivated the soul transfer great art bestowed by the Starry Night Sage, and had thoroughly absorbed and refined the throne left to him by the young emperor. The only major matter still pending and urgently needing resolution was the trade of that truce steel. This was the true top priority matter. He immediately turned around and cupped his hands solemnly towards 9, Nether Demon Venerable, and the first, Rank Tower Lord of Fang Mountain, saying, Senior 9 Nether, Senior Nameless, please escort me to beyond the heavens. I need to make a deal with the guests beyond the heavens. 9, Nether Demon Venerable nodded slightly and replied, Very well. Those alien powerhouses entrenched beyond the heavens, how could the sages of the Central Lands not know of them? He raised his hand and casually slashed. A vast spatial force instantly tore open the void. Fang Chen released Ling Shu from his embrace, looked at her with resolute eyes, and instructed, Wait for me at the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. As his words fell, escorted by 9 Nether Demon Venerable and Nameless Sage on his left and right, he once again stepped into that profound void. The moment their figures appeared, they immediately drew the attention of Great Dream Demon Venerable and other alien powerhouses. One after another, powerful figures gathered around. Compared to the mere 20, odd during the battle with the young emperor, now over 40 had gathered here, all uniformly powerhouses at the Sage Realm. It seemed the appeal of the truce steel was even stronger than imagined. However, that fellow called Kiki still hadn't arrived. They had agreed on 1 month, and now it was about to be overdue. With such conduct, she still dares to call herself a black market merchant. Fang Chen shook his head inwardly, making up his mind to ignore her for now and first complete the trade with the sages of the Myriad Heavens and 100 Worlds. Just then a low roar suppressed with rage suddenly rang out, Fang Chen, release my son. The speaker was none other than Great Dream Demon Venerable, his face livid. 9 Nether Demon Venerable and Nameless Sage instantly became alert, their forms flickering as they firmly shielded Fang Chen behind them. This Great Dream Demon Venerable was a genuine 3 Calamities realm sage. Yet Fang Chen was unafraid. He parted the 2 seniors and smiled calmly. Seniors, rest assured, he is the one least to worry about. If you ask who most wishes Fang Chen dead, that's hard to say. Those who want him dead could probably form a line from the Central Lands all the way beyond the heavens. But as for who least wants him dead, Great Dream Demon Venerable definitely ranks near the top. Because once Fang Chen dies, his precious son trapped inside the primordial heaven imprisoning gourd might never see the light of day again. Fang Chen turned to look at Great Dream Demon Venerable, a warm smile appearing on his face. Don't worry, your son is living very well. Right now he has security when he wants security, freedom, also security, and enjoyment, also security. In short, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. Great Dream Demon Venerable was almost angered into laughter by these words. Wasn't that just leaving him with nothing but security? Suppressing his fury, he asked in a deep voice, What will it take for you to release my son? Fang Chen unhurriedly replied, After I finish trading with these esteemed guests, we'll discuss your son's matter. Great Dream Demon Venerable's face darkened again, but he could only snort coldly and say no more. Because he was also determined to obtain this true steel. The ancient demon realm was still suffering frenzied invasions by dark beings. With this steel, not only could the ancient demon realm immediately get out of trouble, but it would also be spared from another invasion 1,000 years later. To achieve this goal, any price was worth paying. Seeing the crowd gather around, some with ambiguous greedy looks, Fang Chen laughed heartily and said loudly, You all don't think I'd negotiate with a full several dozen sages, why, carrying the true steel, do you? You must realize, any single sage strike is not something Fang Chen can contend with, let alone over 40. A sage, upon hearing this, immediately snorted softly and demanded, Then, what gives you the right to negotiate with us? Let the person holding the true steel come out and talk in person. Just then, from the Central Lands behind them, suddenly came the unified and authoritative voice of the 9 Grand Libationers, because he is Fang Chen of the Central Lands. The barrier of the Central Lands was instantly torn open with a void rift. The 9 Grand Libationers stood in a row within the world. They said nothing, merely gazing over with solemn eyes, emanating an exceptionally unique aura that made many sages show wary expressions. Recalling that when these 9 Grand Libationers joined forces, they could condense a colossal avatar capable of directly confronting the chaotic ancient blood Marquis. Those sages who originally harbored ill intentions then suppressed their thoughts of attacking and seizing. Witnessing this scene, Fang Chen felt deeply moved. Although the central lands were also filled with competition between prefectures, contests between sects, and brutal struggles between people. But all of this was conducted under the rules set by the 9 imperial observatories. Though there was a cruel side, order ultimately existed. The Myriad Heavens and 100 Worlds were entirely different. No single power could set unified rules for all worlds. The only universally acknowledged rule here was the naked law of the jungle. If he didn't have the central lands at his back, this true steel in his hands would by no means be a bargaining chip, but a source of fatal calamity. Fang Chen quickly retracted his thoughts, looked at the 40 sages before him, and said, neither servile nor overbearing. If there are no objections, I will announce the rules.
HMPH.
Great Dream Demon Venerable snorted heavily from his nostrils and said disdainfully, there is only one true steel. Naturally, the highest bidder gets it. What other new rules could there be? The 9 Grand Libationers and the Central Land Sages, like 9 Nether Demon Venerable, also looked at Fang Chen with slight surprise. Indeed, there was only one true steel. What new trick could Fang Chen pull off? Who said I am only selling the war-free steel? Fang Chen smiled slightly and announced loudly, this war-free steel, I'm not only selling it, I'm also renting it out. Rent. The assembled sages furrowed their brows in thought. What did rent mean? Fang Chen explained with a smile, I have inquired on behalf of everyone with the master of the primordial hunting grounds. This war-free steel can be reused. It remains effective for an entire 1,000-year period. Therefore, I plan to make 2 deals with this war-free steel. The first deal is to offer a leasing opportunity to the esteemed sages here who may be short on funds. As long as you pay the required price, the war-free steel will be allowed to go to your worlds and drive away those dark creatures. The other deal, naturally, is to sell it. Whoever bids the highest will become the true owner of the war-free steel. Of course, the prerequisite is that all renters must finish using it before the steel is handed over to the buyer. After all, a sale does not break a lease. As soon as these words were spoken, they instantly sparked public outrage. What, you plan to rent it out again before selling it? Is this an idea a human could even come up with? You're double, dipping with one steel. Even Kai Kai from the Sin Realm isn't as ruthless as you in business. You're the type of guy who can fry a piece of pork belly into 18 different dishes. Such earth-shattering remarks truly taught the sages from beyond the heavens a good lesson. Even the sages of the Central Plains couldn't help but twitch at the corners of their mouths. Fang Chen had indeed found a novel way to play with the war-free steel. Yet Fang Chen, with his hands behind his back and a contented look, said calmly, buying and renting are entirely voluntary. I am not forcing anyone. Anyone who finds this unreasonable may simply wait for the next primordial hunting and see if any other world is willing to rent or sell their war-free steel. Upon hearing this, the originally uproarious sages from beyond the heavens gradually quieted their protests. The primordial hunting is held once every millennium, and each generation produces a first-place winner. However, the only one who could offer the war-free steel for sale and rent is Fang Chen here before us. After the murmurs subsided, Fang Chen smiled again and said, now let us discuss the rental arrangements. As his voice fell, fully 20 sages felt their hearts stir, for the invasion of ancient dark creatures in their worlds had not yet ended. If they could not buy the war-free steel at all, being able to use it once at a certain cost would still make this trip worthwhile. Seeing this, Fang Chen laid out his terms. For a single rental, I have 2 conditions. First, your world must send forth a sage to assist our central plains in conquering the southern heaven realm, and it must end in victory. At these words, the 20 sages from various worlds all furrowed their brows. The other sages also revealed expressions of great astonishment. The Grand Dream Demon Lord even let out a scoff and mocked, do you even know what you are saying? For 10,000 years, we have only heard of ancient dark creatures encroaching upon one world after another. Never has a fallen world been reclaimed. Even the divine capital back then couldn't achieve it, let alone your tiny central plains. The 20 sages who wanted to rent also shook their heads incessantly. This idea of your central plains is far too impractical. The ancient dark creatures that each world faces are precisely calculated by some grand design, at least twice the strength of that world. That we can repel the invasion once every millennium is already the result of exhausting all the efforts of our own world, with the aid of the master of the primordial hunting grounds. Your central plains actually wants to counterattack the ancient giants. From among the sages of the beyond, a voice of incredulous doubt rang out. Truly, worlds that rely on their own abilities to repel the invasions of ancient dark creatures are few and far between, apart from the divine capital and the four great realms.
Even those forces that barely manage to win are invariably severely weakened.
How could they have any strength left for a counterattack?
Back then, the divine capital, the martial arsenal, the Sin realm, the southern Kyan realm, and the heavenly court all tried to invade the source worlds of those dark creatures,
hoping to eradicate the threat once and for all. But in the end, for some unknown reason, they all failed. The Central Plains probably won the battle against the ancient giants solely because Fang Chen seized the war, free steel, right?
With such meager strength, you want to attack the giants.
How is that possible? This is sheer fantasy.
Oh. A look of surprise flickered in Fang Chen's eyes, and he raised his eyebrows slightly.
Are the ancient dark creatures of each world truly so difficult to destroy?
Even the divine capital failed.
But so what?
Fang Chen clasped his hands behind his back and spoke coldly. The divine capital failed.
In our Central Plains Confucian way, each generation, at the moment of their passing, sealed the righteous Kai they had cultivated throughout their lives within the great province.
This continued for several generations, lasting 1,000 years. Do you all know what they intended to do with it?
The sages from beyond the heavens had indifferent expressions and were unmoved.
One of them answered dismissively, "Isn't it just passing it on to posterity so that your lineage won't be extinguished? What's so special about that?"
The Confucian way is not unique to your Central Plains. Our world has it too. Leaving righteous Kai to descendants is merely their convention, nothing worth mentioning. The sages from beyond all showed expressions of disapproval. With a composed expression, Fang Chen took a deep breath and said gravely, "The Confucian way of our Central Plains is not like that."
They stored righteous Kai within the great province for 1,000 years, all to fulfill one single obsession, to detonate the entire province, destroy the giants' main forces, and create an eternal peace for future generations.
As the words fell, the bodies of the sages from beyond all trembled in unison.
Even the Grand Dream Demon Lord slowly put away the contempt in his eyes, a trace of shock stirring in their depths.
Such a thing, in the ancient demon realm where deceit and self-interest reign, is absolutely impossible. Different demon clans each calculated their own gains and losses. How could they possibly abandon their entire race to create a future for other races?
An elderly sage with white beard and hair had a drastic change of expression and asked with solemn respect, "Is this true?"
In Fang Chen's mind, the image of that white-haired, aged Star Abyss Grandmaster surfaced, and his voice deepened. Star Abyss Grandmaster, the last leader of the Central Plains Confucian way, offered his own lifespan to detonate all the accumulated righteous Kai, making a great wish to cause
He great province to sink, taking all the giant kings and ordinary giants with him into eternal burial in the void. The sages from beyond were plunged into immense shock.
In their minds, an image involuntarily emerged, a dying, decrepit grandmaster standing atop a collapsing great province, laughing wildly at the sky as he plummeted into the endless void with countless ancient giants. What kind of courage was this? What tragic grandeur was this?
With his single life, he upheld a 1,000-year wish of his lineage and created an eternal peace for the Central Plains.
This, truly, is worthy of the righteous Kai of the Confucian way. The sage of the Myriad Poisons realm, with a look of deep emotion spreading across his aged face.
The Central Plains actually has such people.
No wonder such a small world could win the great war with its own strength. Fang Chen shook his head and said slowly, "No, Star Abyss Grandmaster was just one of them. In our Central Plains, there are many more who are willing to sacrifice themselves to create peace for the Central Plains.
Such people, dare I ask, does the divine capital have them?"
The sages all fell silent.
"Perhaps there are, but certainly not as many as in the Central Plains." The Grand Dream Demon Lord looked in the direction of the Central Plains, a complex expression in his eyes. After all, this is a world once guided by the ancient sage of Cloud Wilderness. It is not quite the same as other worlds.
The people of this world are the closest in spirit to the humans of the glorious age from eons ago. They still possess noble ideals and a sense of mission akin to the humans of that era.
Fortunately, only one Central Plains remains. If all humans were like those in the Central Plains, they would have long ago reclaimed dominion over heaven and earth.
Jiang Yishan, who stood nearby, remained silent. He had personally participated in the ancient giant war and witnessed the heroic act of Star Abyss Grandmaster causing the great province to sink. He had also witnessed in the moment of despair an unnamed grandmaster at the cost of his life, bearing the sage tombstone to suppress the giants, turning the tide of defeat in one stroke. Perhaps it was precisely because of these moving figures, one after another, that young Master Xiang eventually gave up competing with Fang Chen for the war-free steel. Such a world is what all living beings yearn for. The hearts of the 20 sages were stirred. If the southern heaven realm is crippled, then in this battle there may yet be hope for victory. The elder sage of the ice realm immediately spoke up. Good, we can agree to this condition. However, we are merely assisting the Central Earth. If the situation turns dire, we will not risk our lives for the Central Earth. Fang Chen nodded slightly. Rest assured, I will not put you in a difficult position. Next is my second condition. Given that you are helping the Central Earth destroy our enemy, I will not demand too many resources from you. You need only provide a meritorious virtue divine pearl for breaking through to the Sage realm, and resources for breaking through to the Asura Emperor, Demon Exalt, and such realms. This is not excessive, right? The condition he had previously proposed to the Hell realm not only included an Asura Emperor opportunity, but also demanded an additional Asura Emperor. The 20 sages were once again stirred. This second condition was indeed unexpectedly much lighter. The sage opportunities were indeed a painfully precious price for their worlds, but if they could be used to avert the disaster of this dark creature invasion, it would be more than worth it. The bald elder, surrounded by the laws of ice, responded without hesitation. The ice realm is willing to offer 10 medium meritorious virtue divine pearls, plus my personal assistance to the Central Earth, in exchange for usage rights of the Truce Monument. The ice realm was not much larger than the Central Earth, merely a small-scale world. Facing the invasion of dark creatures, they had no power to resist, and their current situation was already perilous. He reckoned that securing a truce monument through competition among the Myriad Heavens and 100 realms was extremely difficult. If they could lease it, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. 10 medium, meritorious virtue, divine pearls, was truly a bargain. Fang Chen raised an eyebrow. With someone taking the lead, things became much easier. He shifted his gaze, took out a small notebook, and announced while writing, Ice Realm, 10 medium meritorious virtue divine pearls, transaction rank first place. Having written that, he looked at the sages of the other realms who were still hesitating, and added meaningfully, By the way, the order of using the Truce Monument will be determined by the order in which transactions are concluded.
What?
The sages, who were still weighing their options, suddenly felt a sense of urgency. The Dark Realm offers one Asura Emperor opportunity to lease the Truce Monument once. A hurried voice called out from the crowd. All right, Dark Realm, Asura Emperor opportunity, second place. Fang Chen jotted it down with a flourish. The Earth Realm offers one large meritorious virtue, divine pearl, to lease the Truce Monument once. Earth Realm. Fang Chen looked at the speaker, an old man with an ashen complexion, his skin resembling parched, cracked earth and radiating a profound law of earth. Among the 5 energies of void flux he currently cultivated, the lightning and fire energies were fully perfected, and he had dabbled somewhat in the void wind energy. Only the earth origin and heaven origin had not yet been acquired. Could this earth realm be a world that primarily cultivates earth-based divine abilities? If he still could not find the earth origin in the future, he might go to the earth realm to have a look. All right, earth realm, large meritorious virtue divine pearl, third place. Fang Chen collected his thoughts and recorded it loudly. With 3 sages taking the lead, the subsequent transactions became much more enthusiastic.
Not long after,
the little notebook already had the names of 10 sages written on it. Among them 2 were humans, 2 asuras, 1 angel, 1 demon, and the rest were of other races. As for the other 10 sages who were initially interested, after careful consideration, they ultimately gave up on leasing. Because their worlds were all of medium scale or larger, and although they were still fighting the ancient dark creatures, they had already gained the upper hand. Victory was only a matter of time, so they felt it unnecessary to pay such a huge price to lease the Truce Monument. However, this was already very satisfying for Fang Chen. He had 11 Asura Emperors, plus 10 sages from beyond the heavens, plus the native sages of the Central Earth. In terms of sage level power, the strength of the Central Earth had already completely surpassed that of the Southern Heaven realm. At this moment, the Ice Realm sage cupped his hands and asked, Young friend Fang, might this old man be allowed to hand over these 10 medium meritorious virtue divine pearls after the great battle? The other 9 sages also had no intention of completing the transaction immediately. After all, whether the Central Earth could defeat the Southern Heaven realm was still a matter of debate. If by any chance the Central Earth lost, the transaction might not proceed, and if their precious resources had been handed over in advance, would they not be lost forever?
That is naturally the case. Fang Chen nodded with a smile.
Although he very much wished to obtain these resources before the great battle, allowing the Central Earth to produce another batch of sages, demon emperors, and Asura emperors in the short term.
But the sages of the Myriad Heavens and 100 Realms were no fools. How could they be willing to hand over their resources so easily?
Everything would have to wait until after the destruction of the heavenly realm, and then he would collect from each world one by one.
Fang Chen's smile faded as he looked solemnly at the remaining 30 sages. Now, we come to the priest's ale session for the truce monument.
Whoever bids the highest, this truce monument shall belong to them. After all the leasing worlds have used their turns, the truce monument will permanently belong to your world. The sages from beyond the heavens were immediately electrified with excitement. A truce monument meant their world could enjoy a full 2,000 years of peaceful development. When the ancient titans descended once more, there would be a tremendous hope for victory.